Hey everybody, and welcome back to 3COG. Today I'm going to talk about the positive side of this pandemic situation we find ourselves in. I am not making light of the fact that people have died, and if you've lost somebody, I am truly sorry for your loss. I'm saying that we've learned some things from this pandemic, and so I just wrote a list of some of the things we learned, and I want to talk about them. And if you agree, disagree, let me know in the comments below. So, one of the first things we learned with this whole situation is we need to be more responsible for our supply of food. Be that having more canned goods available to us, frozen food, growing a garden, whatever that is. But there's more people who have realized I need to have more than 2 or 3 days of food available to me in my cupboards, in my freezer. And that's a good thing because a natural disaster can take out grocery stores for 2 weeks. Do you have 2 weeks of food in your house? That's certainly one of the lessons we learned from this, and we're kind of continuing to learn it in regard to meat. So maybe you need to figure out non-standard methods of sourcing some meat, like getting in contact with an actual butcher and doing a whole cow purchase or half a cow, splitting it with your neighbors, whatever. But we're proving you cannot depend on fast food, you cannot depend on grocery stores to necessarily supply everything you need food wise. So grow a garden. When things return back to normal, or even now, have some reserves of food available to you so that if the grocery store ran out of food right now, you're not starving to death in 3 days. So that's certainly a positive. We learned we need to have more food in the house, or we need to have sources of food that are not accessible to everybody else. Same thing can be said about supplies. So one of the big supplies that I always try to keep in my house is bleach. Standard bleach has a million uses in terms of you dilute it to different levels in water, and obviously you can sterilize water. You can use it as a cleaner. There's a lot of different things that bleach can be used for. And one of the rules that I've always had or not always, but for a long time I've had for my household is that we will have 2 gallons of bleach at all times. So we're using another one for laundry, cleaning, whatever. We've always got to have 2 gallons of bleach set aside because of the many, many uses that bleach has. So we've certainly learned that supply-wise, hand sanitizer, soap, dish soap, body wash, all this stuff that we took for granted that we can just run to the store and grab another package of, because of people panic buying, we can't. So this is one of those things that we have to prepare for prior to the fact, as opposed to, oh, it's getting bad now, we need these supplies. So figure out what those supplies are for you so that you have them stored in your house. And I'm not saying it has to be an obscene level. I'm saying having a few things in reserve to get you through 2 or 3 months of cleaning, washing, laundry, things like that. It's not hard, doesn't take up a lot of space, and normally is cost effective because you're buying in bulk. So that's another thing we learned. We learned that we need to have supplies on hand. And that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people depending on what you're doing, but that's something we learned because all of a sudden they're gone. So, supplies. Government overreach. Yeah, we're seeing plenty of that. The government doesn't know what they're doing any more than anybody else, right? And we're seeing now, like, stay-at-home order is unconstitutional. Quarantine is something that happens to sick people to be isolated from healthy people. It's not something we do to healthy people. But right now, in a lot of states, we've got quarantine orders. Quarantine orders. It's not quarantine. It's house arrest, telling you to stay at home. And we're seeing certain states that are just way up there in their ridiculousness of the situation, and even the federal government. Government overreach. The government will continue to try to expand their finger into your life every chance they get, and this is a perfect example of it. The experts are not always right. I'm not a conspiracy theorist on this, that, or the other thing. What I'm saying is that the correct answer, has been changed multiple times. Initially, we were told by, it was either CDC, so Center for Disease Control, or World Health Organization, that this could not be transmitted human to human. Well, obviously it can, right? And then we were told that no matter what stopgaps we put in place, what we did to try to mitigate exposure and spread, that in the US we were looking at 2 million deaths. Well, that hasn't happened, and they were wrong about human exposure. So I'm not blaming them, because we're all fallible, like we can all make mistakes. But the fact is that this is stuff that was put out that everybody was like, oh, that's the answer from the experts. What have we learned from this whole situation? The experts are not always right. For sure. And then one of the biggest positives, gun ownership. Gun ownership has exploded with this whole situation because everybody's seeing everything else. Food, supplies, government overreach, experts don't know what the hell is going on, and they're like, can I really trust other people for my personal safety or for my family's personal safety? And the answer is no, you can't. You cannot fully depend on anybody else for your safety and your family's safety when it comes to home invasion, self-defense, things like that. So we've seen a massive explosion of gun ownership, which is a great thing. March of 2020, I believe we broke the record with like 3.7 million background checks. That's just background checks. That's not counting how many were 2 guns, 3 guns, 4 guns, 5 guns, stuff like that. But 3.7 million background checks. That's awesome. There's a whole lot of people out there who, for the first time ever, have bought a gun and are taking their own protection seriously and realizing that it's a personal decision and not just something that you can depend on the government for. So on that note, if you have friends who got a gun because of this situation, got a couple guns because of this situation, take the time to be patient with them and try to train them, try to help them, encourage them to seek out good instructors who are going to teach them the right, safe way to handle those weapons, because they're brand new. They don't know what they're doing. So that's it. It was just a quick list of things that I said, are positive outcomes of this whole situation. I think a lot of people have learned a lot. I think a lot of adults have learned how not adult they are in terms of preparation, in terms of just understanding what's really going on. And there's definitely some positive lessons that we can take out of this situation that we can learn from, and we can better prepare ourselves for the future. So that's the point. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, or unlike, whatever. And I'll see you next time on 3COG.